Hello, everybody. Welcome to the lunch table. My name is Evan. Today, I'm joined by Nick and Peyton, and today we got an NBA episode for you guys. We haven't done one of these in a little bit because we've been doing a lot of football stuff with the draft and everything, but we're bringing you a basketball episode today. We're going to be talking about the All-NBA teams, the NBA awards, the draft lottery, the Ja Morant incident, and the NBA playoffs. So, a packed episode for you guys today, but before we begin, make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok at lunchtable.takes. And we'll jump right into it, starting with the All-NBA teams. First team was Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, and Luka Doncic. Second team was Jimmy Butler, Jaylen Brown, Nikola Jokic, Donovan Mitchell, Steph Curry. And third team was Julius Randle, LeBron James, Domantas Sabonis, De'Aaron Fox, and Damian Lillard. So, Nick, was there anything that you would change? Anybody you'd move up or down in those three teams? Yeah.
First team, I think, was fine. Giannis and Tatum at the forwards, I think that's pretty obvious. Top two records in the league, respectively. I think Giannis actually got unanimous All-NBA first team, which was kind of wild. I didn't even know that before today. I think the only real change you could have made, there's obviously the Embiid v. Jokic factor, but I think Embiid outplayed him just a teeny bit. So I don't have an issue with that. I think the only thing you could argue was whether Donovan Mitchell should have been in the first team over Luka just because of team success. But Luka averaged almost a triple-double. So it kind of is what it is in terms of that. And then I think everyone that didn't make the first team that you could have an argument for made the second team. So I don't really have a problem with the first two All-NBA teams. Third team, personally, I would have had AD over Sabonis. But I don't have an issue with Sabonis just because of the success that the Kings had and De'Aaron Fox being there, Dame being there. When they played, they were both outstanding. De'Aaron Fox was the catalyst for the Kings, exceeding all expectations. And LeBron was in there. You kind of got to have LeBron in there. Like I said, I think that LeBron wasn't the entire reason the Lakers rattled back and got to where they're at now. I think AD was a big part of that too, but I don't have a major issue with any of the three teams. Again, only thing I might put AD over Sabonis, but I don't have an issue with Sabonis being in over AD in terms of all NBA teams.
Yeah, I'd have to completely agree. I can't think of a huge snub here. I think you can leave AD off just because of the man's made of glass. He barely
That's
played.
Fair.
You can switch Donovan Mitchell for SGA or Luka, I think, and I'm not too upset. But I'm overall fine with just about every placement here, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree pretty much. I think, obviously, you got that Embiid-Jokic thing, but Embiid ended up winning MVP, so that automatically makes him first team.
You can't really leave the MVP off of All-NBA first team, unfortunately.
No, yeah.
It is a regular season award.
Yeah.
It is.
Caveat, regular season
If it
award.
wasn't, then you wouldn't see guys like Julius Randle and
Yeah, we'd be having a different conversation
like that on there. But yeah, I think Donovan Mitchell should probably be in the first team, but with the crew of guys that are in there, I'm fine with him in second team. But it's going to be interesting here with the new CBA. They're changing the way that all NBA teams are structured now. Right now, it's two guards, two forwards in the center, and it's going to become positionless. And then there's a game cap. You have to play X amount of games to get on. And I think the people that wouldn't make it, I think it was LeBron, I think Lillard, I think was Steph maybe, a couple other guys that wouldn't make it with the new CBA rules. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see how the All NBA teams shake out, just because there's going to be a lot of different changes and stuff. So
is it based on you have to play X amount of games to qualify for third team, then a different amount of games for second team, then different for first, or is it a set rate for all three teams?
I'm not sure. Let me take a look.
Because I saw that people were floating around you'd have to play 55 games to qualify for third team, and then 60 for second team, and then 65 for first team. I think that'd be a better way of going about it, just because injuries happen and you can't really blame the player for getting injured most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's a flat rate, of like 65 games for all teams, I think you're going to see a lot of players that just don't deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Over players that missed more time due to injury but just had way better seasons.
Yeah, you'd get a lot of weird people in the third team.
Or you could just lower the game count to like 55 to 60 overall, and then you start getting into that territory where it's like, okay, if you missed almost half the season, do you really deserve to be on an all-NBA team?
I think it makes sense to tier it.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I think that makes sense too. Because then, like you said, yeah, you'll have
You can
people
reward
who,
the players that have been consistent in terms of being on the court, but then also reward the guys that just had better seasons overall.
Yeah.
I get like not blaming a player for being injured, but at the same time, you gotta rank the players based on how good they were the whole season.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so.
Yeah, and availability is huge. Another thing about the All-NBA teams is I think it was if Jaylen Brown made All-NBA first team, or maybe it was just if he made All-NBA, then he was available for the Supermax. I forget if that's first or second team, but that's something to monitor too because they've been up and down on whether he's going to stay or not.
Yeah.
So that was kind of something.
Jaylen Brown's a guy that can lead any franchise to a title. I'm fully convinced of that. I think he's one of the top 5 guards in the league, and I think the guard play in the NBA right now is arguably the best it's ever been. I think Jaylen Brown is that guy. He's a little bit inconsistent, but when he's on, he's hot. So I think regardless, he's eligible. He deserves it. But I don't know what the stipulations for getting a Supermax are. So
yeah, I mean, I think I read something. It was like with Brown and Tatum's projected contracts, they'll be paying like over $600 million to 2 players.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money
for Jaylen Brown. It's to make any of the 3 All-NBA teams.
Okay, so he did qualify because he had a heck of a season this year, and he definitely.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Career best year for Jaylen Brown
and Jason Tatum. I mean, Tatum averaged like 30. But
didn't he finish 4th in MVP voting?
Yeah, he finished 4th.
Yeah.
That's good for Jason Tatum.
Yeah. Speaking of MVP voting, we'll move on to the NBA awards. Joel Embiid won the MVP. What'd you guys think of that? I know that one had its controversy, I feel like. People were up and down about it.
I mean, we could spend an entire hour or two discussing this topic itself, but, I mean, Embiid was slightly better, but Jokic was more efficient, and I think Jokic had a slightly better supporting cast than Embiid did, so, I mean, I'd probably give it to Embiid just because I feel like he was more impactful to his team, but then in the regular season, but then you look at the playoffs, and it's like when Jokic is out, the Nuggets' offense is kind of just stagnant. So if I know it's a regular season award, and Embiid had more impact on the Sixers in the regular season, so I think he deserved it. And he's also just been playing at a crazy elite level the past 2-3 seasons, so I think it was kind of his time. But you can make a really, really great argument for Jokic winning 3 straight MVPs. I think the last person to do that was Larry Bird. So he would have been in elite territory, and he might just cement his legacy full stop by this time next month. But yeah, I don't have a problem with Embiid winning it. I probably would have voted for Jokic just because I feel like he was more efficient, but we're splitting hairs at this point.
Yeah, I think Jokic is the better player at the end of the day. But what I think the voters saw is that slump the Nuggets had towards the end of the season. And it's kind of hard to cast your number one vote for him, I think, at that point. So I kind of agree with the Embiid pick at the end of the day.
Yeah, I wanted Embiid to win it just because I feel like the last 2 years, yes, Jokic has been a monster, but I feel like Embiid just gotten kind of snubbed in areas, and I also feel like you always have to put into account voter fatigue. Yeah. I think was definitely a thing this year, because winning 3 straight obviously hasn't been done very often.
Yeah.
And then Embiid won the scoring title, so he's the first center since Shaq in 2000 to do that. So that was pretty good. But yeah, I mean, if you're judging off playoffs, it's Jokic by a million. But it is a regular season award, and so. But it was a toss up for sure. It was a debate throughout the entire season.
I think another thing is that when the Nuggets played the Sixers, Embiid actually outplayed Jokic.
That's true.
Badly.
That is true.
Yeah.
So if you're going on like head to head, because they do play the same position, so I think you could factor this into account. When they were playing against each other, they were going 1-on-1. Embiid kind of embarrassed him.
He dropped like 40 something.
Yeah, he dropped
right?
like 40 something against him one game. So I think they factored that into. I think you should factor that in terms of like if the top 2 players that are running for MVP are in the same position, you can look at how they played versus each other if it's that close like it was this year. So I think Embiid was the right selection at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I agree. Moving on to the Rookie of the Year, Paolo Banchero won Rookie of the Year. What did you guys think of that?
no one should argue with this.
No,
there's just no sane argument for anyone else. I don't really have much else to say.
Yeah,
about it.
the Paolo won by a landslide. It was not close Benedict Mathurin had a good start, but then fell off. So from about November on, it wasn't really close.
Walker Kessler was a good rookie, but no. Yeah.
Banchero might be the face of that Magic franchise for the next 15 years.
Minimum a perennial all-star.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he got 90 out of the 100 votes, so, I mean, they all pretty much unanimously agreed that he was Rookie of the Year.
Who else got number 1 votes? Who didn't
vote for Banchero?
I forget. There was one.
Take away that person's vote.
I think it was a guy who works for the Jazz. I think voted.
Yeah, he voted for Walker Kessler. Yeah.
Get out of here.
So, and like Jalen Williams was really good too.
Jalen Williams was really good.
He was a surprising player for the Thunder, but yeah, I mean, averaging 27 and 4 as a rookie is very good.
The next level,
and he was getting like what he was doing on the court, like stats wise, was like comparative to like rookie year LeBron.
Yeah,
which is, and if you're ever in a conversation with LeBron, that means you're doing something right. So, I think
no one was close to his pro ready.
No, that's for sure. But yeah, I mean that sets the Magic up real well. I mean, we'll talk about the lottery here later, but they ended up with the 6th overall pick. You got Franz Wagner, you got Paolo now, you got Markelle Fultz still, Cole Anthony. Like, that team's pretty deep, and they got a lot of young talent. So, I mean, they got their building block for sure in Paolo, and we'll see if they can build on that here in the draft and do whatever they need to get back in the playoffs. She likes Nick.
She does like me.
Tulip cameo. All right, back on track. We'll move on to most improved player, which was Larry Markkinen. What did you guys think of that one?
That's another one that you got to pick. I feel like.
Yeah, Larry Markkinen, he left. I think, was it Chicago or Cleveland that he came
Cleveland.
from? Cleveland, okay. Mm-hmm.
He was in the Donovan Mitchell trade.
I mean, yeah, he just kind of came out of nowhere. I think you kind of have to pick him. I don't think anyone else is really close.
Yeah, the only person I would have put in there was Shea, just because
of how
great of a season he had.
Yeah, I think we knew Shea's potential, though.
Yeah.
This season. We're talking about coming out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Shea went from 24 to like 31 points. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I would have just put Shea in there just because, like you said, of the absolute unreal season he had. But if we're talking about like most improved, like actually, like Markkinen was deserving of it.
I feel like everyone kind of knew Shea was going to get to this point at some point in his career.
Yeah.
We just kind of before this season, it was kind of like he might have 1 or 2 seasons like that, and now it's like, oh boy, he might be like a face of the NBA for the next like decade.
Yeah, I mean he was going off this year, and he was like very efficient too. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, he shot 90% from the free throw line, 53% from 2, and 34% from 3. So it's pretty efficient on 31.
90%. I thought you said 98% from the free throw line.
90.
Okay. I was like, there's no way he shot 98%
And I mean,
from the free throw line.
On 20 field goal attempts, shooting that efficient is very good. So I would have maybe given it to him, but I'm not. I don't see anything wrong with the Markkinen pick. Now we got defensive player of the year, Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr. What do you think of Triple J?
I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Jaren Jackson Jr.'s game. He kind of just tries to make everything into a highlight, especially on defense. So I think you could have made a case for like Evan Mobley or
The third one was Brook Lopez.
yeah, Brook Lopez, but like I mean he's kind of a center and the NBA is very guard oriented. So that's kind of But I think that Jaren Jackson Jr. was probably the right selection because his impact defensively is just crazy. But I mean, I think he tries to make everything into a highlight. So I'm not a huge fan of his game, and it kind of showed in the playoffs against the Lakers. But if Anthony Davis had stayed healthy the full year, you could have made an argument that AD should have got it. The fact that AD, well, I know we're past this, but the fact that AD didn't even make an All-NBA defensive team is criminal.
Yeah, he was ridiculous defensively.
I mean, we're seeing that in the playoffs.
Yeah, we're seeing that now. His impact on defense is second to none. Like, the entire Lakers defense changes ways in the game. You do not shoot in the paint when he's there. But, yeah, I think Jaren Jackson Jr., I probably would have voted for Evan Mobley, but, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you had, like, a clear standout, like, best defensive player this year. So going with Jaren Jackson from, like, the sheer defensive stats, I guess I'm fine with it. I don't know if he's the best defensive player right now, but I'm fine with the vote.
Yeah, I mean, he averaged 3 blocks a game, which is pretty good. But I personally would have given it to Mobley just because I feel like Mobley does more than just block shots. I feel like Jaren Jackson can like just block shots.
Yeah, that's what.
But Mobley, I feel like he can guard 1 through 5, and he's more of a versatile perimeter defender than Jackson is.
For sure.
And he still has the block rates. I mean, he averaged 1.5 blocks this year, and so I think he's still got that interior defense. But I mean, if Mobley keeps it up, I wouldn't be surprised.
He's going to get there
gets a
one day.
DPOY
He will win many DPOYs, I think.
Yeah. Moving on, 6th man of the year was Malcolm Brogdon. What did you guys think of that? Beat out Emmanuel Quickley and Bobby Portis.
I mean, I don't think we have to spend too much time on this. Malcolm Brogdon was kind of him in terms of 6th man this year. He was the reason the Celtics got off to the start that they did, coming off the bench and just giving about 20 a night. Mm-hmm. Like, I think we kind of called this when he went to Boston this offseason. We were like, he should be in the running for 6th man of the year because he's not going to start over Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown. And he's very, very, very good. So he lived up to his potential. And I don't think there was another guy that you could argue.
Yeah, I agree completely. I don't have anything else to say about it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree too. You talked about this, but I loved like when they traded for Brogdon. That was exactly what I felt like the Celtics needed, was a big guard that could play the 1 or the 2, could score off the bench, could bring that shooting. Because Marcus Smart, as great of a player as he is, great as a defender he is,
doesn't really bring a whole lot on the offense.
Yeah, his offensive game is not to be desired. He has been shooting okay from 3, but Brogdon obviously is more efficient. And I thought he was going to come in and come right off and start, but having him leading that second unit, I think is a perfect spot for him, being that leader with Robert Williams, Grant Williams, and the guys that they have there in that deep Celtics team. He's being the catalyst for that bench unit, I think is perfect, and obviously he showed it, putting up big numbers at the 6th man. Last NBA award we'll talk about is Coach of the Year, going to Mike Brown. I feel like this is another one that was pretty
cut and dry.
Fairly cut and dry.
Yeah.
I mean, you take a team that hasn't made the playoffs in, 18 years?
Hasn't won a playoff series in like 21, I think it was.
And lead them to a 3 seed, take the Warriors to 7. And, I mean, the Kings kind of came out of nowhere, honestly. I mean, obviously, De'Aaron Fox and Sabonis getting All-NBA third-team votes and getting on there, and then obviously Coach of the Year. So, I mean, the Kings were very well represented when it comes to awards, and Fox won Clutch Player of the Year as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just an amazing season for the Kings.
The Kings have a foundation for the first time in the better part of 2 decades, and I feel like you've got to commend Mike Brown for that tremendously, because I don't think anyone expected them to be where they are now this time last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's got to be Mike Brown.
Yeah. I mean, I'm like slightly a Kings fan because I love watching De'Aaron Fox, so like And what the Kings haven't had is a good coach. They had David Yeager, and they almost made the playoffs. And then they fired him for some reason and signed Luke Walton. And we all know Luke Walton is a horrible coach, one of the worst ones. And then they moved on from him, and now they're on Mike Brown. And obviously, Mike Brown's reputation and just speaks for itself. I mean, he coached LeBron when he went to his first NBA Finals. He was a longtime Spurs assistant. He was on all the Warriors championships, and now he's here in Sacramento. And, I mean, he's a culture changer. I mean, I listened to one interview where Fox was that him and Fox got in like a little heated discussion where Fox turned the ball over and like didn't run back on defense, and Mike Brown immediately called a timeout and called out Fox in the middle of the entire team and said, hey, like, you're the leader of this team. You got to put effort and energy 100% of the time. And Fox noted that, and obviously Fox had his best season as an NBA player with Mike Brown, and they had a lot of team success as well. So I love that Mike Brown hiring. He's been great for the Kings. I think he fits the culture, and I'm very happy to see that he got awarded for what he did this year as
Who else was even in the running for Coach of the Year? Wasn't it like
Mark Dagno and Joe Mazzulla?
Yeah, so I don't even think it was close.
Yeah, I don't know about that. Yeah, it had to be Mike Brown.
Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the draft lottery. This is the more recent, happened yesterday, right?
2 days ago.
2 days ago. It was the Wemby sweepstakes, man. I mean, everybody pretty much, like those final probably 5 teams were just tanking there towards the end of the season. And the San Antonio Spurs ended up winning the Wemby sweepstakes, getting their 3rd number 1 pick in franchise history. And you probably know the other 2. Just a guy named Tim Duncan, who's a Hall of Famer, probably the best power forward of all time. And then another guy named David Robinson, who's also a Hall of Famer and is also a top center of all time.
One of the best centers of all time.
And now they're adding Victor Wembanyama, who
could eclipse both of those players' legacies.
Yeah, who is the best prospect we've seen since LeBron James in 2003. I mean, dude's 7'4", over 200 pounds. He can dribble, he can shoot, he can block. There's nothing really this guy can't do. And I mean, I think he fits right in with the Spurs culture.
Selfishly, I didn't want to see the Spurs win it just because they came off a 2-decade run of dominance where they won 5 titles. So I kind of wanted to see Charlotte get it just because they have been good for 1 year out of the 20 I've been alive. Mm-hmm. But in terms of Wembanyama personally, I think San Antonio was the best place he could have gone to. San Antonio has a history of developing big men to their absolute fullest potential, and the one thing with him is he's gotta put on muscle. He's gotta put on weight. Just because his stature might be a bit fragile, he's not gonna have to worry about that. San Antonio will take care of him in terms of that regard. They've done it before. So I think personally, Wemby couldn't be happier. I just wanted to see another team get it, but it is what it is.
You couldn't make a better landing spot for Wembanyama. I think the history of international players going there and finding success obviously is there. You have a seasoned coach who's won many championships. You have another good player in the front court there. So that front court duo will be really good, I think. You got good young guards. It's just perfect spot for him to start out here, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Greg Popovich is going to be in the grave by the time Victor's done.
If they didn't win, he was probably going to retire in the next 2 years or so. But now he's got a reason to stick around for a little bit longer.
Yeah, but it's like you said, it's one of those teams that's dominated the past 2 decades really, and has won 5 championships. And a lot of people in the NFL world are comparing it to be if the Patriots got Caleb Williams. And so that is, I think, a lot of people didn't want the Spurs. I mean, the Spurs are also kind of just boring. Just the way that they play is not the most exciting. But if you look at the Spurs' future, it's looking very bright now. You got obviously Victor Wembanyama, who is, like we said, is the most hyped up prospect that we've seen since LeBron. And you got Jeremy Sohan, Malachi Branham, Keldon Johnson. You got a lot of players that are young and can make a difference. And I mean, you look at their picks. They got their own pick this year, obviously. Then they have their pick next year, Charlotte's pick next year, Toronto's pick next year, and then they have their pick, Atlanta's pick, Chicago's pick in 2025. 2026, they have theirs in Atlanta's pick. And then 2027, they have theirs in Atlanta's pick. So they have at least 2 first-round picks here for the next 5 drafts. And, I mean, that Charlotte pick could be high depending on how they are. Toronto, maybe. The Chicago, depending on what they do.
That will be high.
Yeah.
That will be a top 10 pick.
They could have a lot of high picks on just making, like, these moves, like these slight moves. I mean, obviously, they traded DeJounte Murray, which is the reason why they have most of their picks. But getting him and then that sign and trade with DeMar DeRozan to the Bulls gets them that Bulls pick. And, I mean, I think the Spurs have been building to this. They've had a plan all around that, hey, we're going to just rebuild because, I mean, they had a run of what, like 15-something years where
I think it was like 18 seasons straight where they
made the playoffs. Yeah. And, like, they've missed the playoffs for, like, 4 straight years, which is, like, the longest in franchise history. And so they had this plan brewing, and the cherry on top was getting Victor Wembanyama, and that's exactly what they did. So, I mean, if we're talking brightest futures in the NBA, I think you got to put San Antonio, right up there. With the draft capital, the head coach, and now you have Victor Wembanyama, who is unreal.
Depending on how fast Wembanyama develops, like if he comes in and leads them to like the play-in next year, because I think everyone's kind of expecting the Spurs to not quite be right there this next season, but like 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, they could be like one of the contending teams in the West. But if for some reason they like make the play-in next year, this time next year they could trade some of that draft capital to get a real star and kind of contend for the West like that. So they can, but if he doesn't develop as quick as he would like to, like they have swing after swing that they can take in the draft to get him some help. So the ball's kind of in their court right now. Now that they just won the Wembanyama sweepstakes, and we'll see what they do with that.
Yeah, I mean, like you think of with all those draft picks, like you said, they can go in for a big player, like guys who could potentially be on there. That market would be like obviously Dame, Luka, maybe see what happens with him. You got guys like Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, James Harden, maybe Trae Young, Jaylen Brown, maybe. So like, there's a lot of stars who could be like, hey, like the Spurs got a good thing going, and like the Spurs are now a more desirable free agency spot now with Victor and with Pop, and so I think the future is very bright in San Antonio for sure. Some other things about the lottery was the Pistons. They had the number 1 odds. They won, I think it was, 17 games?
Yeah, they had the worst record in the league.
And they dropped all the way to 5. So, for Pistons fans, that really sucks. I mean, they thought they were going to have Cade, Ivy, and Wemby, and they ended up with Cade and Ivy.
Yeah.
And whoever they get at 5.
That's why you don't tank in the NBA. Because a lot of times you're not really rewarded. I think it's kind of poetic justice because I feel like they were very clearly trying to lose towards that latter half of the year. I think they had the worst record in the league by like 5 games too. Like I don't think it was particularly close. The fact that they dropped out of the top 4 is kind of hilarious to me. You've seen Pistons fans all over the place go like crazy, like insane, and I mean it's valid. It's understandable, but in the NBA, you can't lose for the future. You got to try to win whenever you can, and if you finish with a bad record, it kind of is what it is. So that was pretty funny, but, such is life.
Yeah.
Very sad for the Pistons fans that had to watch 17 wins all season. And
not even get a top 4 pick out of it.
Yeah. I mean, they sidelined Cade Cunningham for most of the season with like a knee injury. So,
it was probably a lot better than
it was like an ankle injury or whatever, and he played like half the season. So it was apparent that they were tanking, and I mean the new-ish lottery system did its job and did not reward teams for tanking. So, another team to look at is the Blazers. They moved up 2 spots to go to number 3. Obviously, they have Damian Lillard, and they've been pretty underwhelming here the last couple of years. And Dame said, like, hey, like, I don't want to be a part of a rebuild. Like, I want to win, because he's obviously not getting any younger. And with a 3rd pick, I mean, you can do a lot with that. You can either make the selection if you feel right. I mean, you have Brandon Miller or Scoot Henderson will probably be there, who in edge rusher Victor Wembanyama isn't there. Both of them would more than likely be the number 1 overall picks. They're both phenomenal players. Or you trade it for a star, or you even trade Dame and just go full-on rebuild. What do you think the Blazers should do with what they got now here with the 3rd pick in their situation, Damian Lillard?
They should trade Dame, but they won't, because Dame is the most loyal player the Blazers have ever had.
I agree with that.
So they should trade Dame and get like a 1st or 2 back from him. How old is Damian Lillard?
34, I think.
Yeah, if they traded him now, they'd probably get like a couple first-rounders, like 2 or 3 first-rounders out of him, just because he is a top 5-ish guard in the league. He can make any team that's on the cusp like contend immediately. But I think they're going to trade that 3rd overall pick. If they got the 1st overall, they obviously would have drafted Wembanyama, and the Trailblazers would have been right there, like for the now and for the future. Mm-hmm. But they didn't. And I think they're going to trade that 3rd overall pick to get whoever they feel can help them win now. Although I do think they should trade Dame, I don't think they're going to do that.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think they definitely should trade down and probably trade Dame.
Just blow it all up.
I think Scoot falls to them, to be honest, and I think they should just trade that pick away. Yeah,
I mean, if you have Damian Lillard, like you said, who's been your franchise guy, who's been loyal to you, I mean, you kind of, and like he's on a big contract as well. Like you're kind of handcuffed to what he says. Like what he says goes pretty much. Yeah. So you either ship him off, which, like you said, I don't envision that happening. I think it's the right move because I think with the way that the West is structured, I don't think that that the Blazers, even if they do, depending on what player they get, I don't think they're like gonna still be making much noise anyway, just because of just that current state of their roster. And then, like you said, Peyton, if Brandon Miller goes number 2, you're sitting there at 3 with Scoot Henderson. I mean, if you want to make if you want to make Damian Lillard mad, I mean, you just pull an Aaron Rodgers and draft his replacement super high in the draft and like just let him play or wait or whatever. So, I mean, they're kind of in a weird spot, but I think if you want to honor Dame's loyalty and what he's done for your franchise, you trade number 3, get as much as you can out of that, and just move on from there. So I'm really interested to see what the Blazers are going to do with that 3rd pick.
That 3rd overall pick is more valuable than it would be, though, because Scoot in like 95% of other draft classes would probably be the 1st overall pick.
Yeah, for sure.
He just happened to be in a class with Wembanyama. Scoot is also a freak in terms of athleticism and what he can bring at the guard position. And Brandon Miller at 6'9", if for whatever reason the Hornets go best player available at 2 and take Scoot. Brandon Miller's also not a bad option. He's a 6'9". He's played small forward or power forward?
Small forward.
Small forward, yeah, 6'9", small forward.
Shoots really well from 3.
Yeah, massive 3-and-D guy.
Yeah.
He's going to put on a lot of size when he gets to the league, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he just definitely has that type.
He's a guy that's going to be able to score from anywhere, I think.
Yeah.
Once he gets to the league.
Yeah, so, I mean, you've got Scoot or Brandon Miller. You can, like, kind of go whatever direction you want with either one of those players. So I think that 3rd overall pick is going to be more valuable than it would be in recent years. So if some team really wants one of those 2s and overpays like crazy, the Blazers could possibly be a contender. Mm-hmm. But I think there's way too much that needs to happen for them to be a serious threat in the West. And I think by the time they figure all that out, Dame is going to be like 37. And at that point, it's like
way out of his prime.
Yeah.
Not going to have much trade value left. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out. while we're on the topic of teams with questionable futures, I got a couple other teams I want to ask you guys about. So obviously the Dallas Mavericks have Luka Doncic, and they just traded for Kyrie here at the deadline, but they were nothing short but disappointing pretty much that latter half of the season.
It was an utter failure. There's no...
Yeah. And so with Kyrie becoming a free agent and Luka not really having much to show for in his already good career, I mean, what do you think? Where do you think the Mavericks go? I feel like their future is very uncertain because you got a guy like Luka who you can't just kind of waste his prime. You got to do something about it. And they tried it with Kyrie, but obviously it didn't really work. So do they bring back Kyrie?
Yeah.
Do they what do they do?
The problem is that I don't think their situation is that hard to fix. You've already got Luka, who is a top 2 or 3 guard in the league. They just need guys that can play defense on the wing. You can have Kyrie, you can have Luka. They can do all the flashy stuff on offense if they want. But the fact of the matter is, if you're giving up 120, 130 points a game, you're not gonna be able to have long-term sustained success. So the Mavericks have to just try and sign guys who can play defense on the wings and on the interior. But I don't know how much cap room they have. I don't know how realistic that actually is. So if in a year or two's time, if they do try to trade Luka, he's going to command the biggest trade package in NBA history.
No doubt.
Because he's a guard in his mid to late 20s that is right there in terms of leading a team to a championship right now. If you give up it probably will be 4 or 5 first rounders, maybe a couple players too, to become an instant contender like that. Some team's going to be out there willing to do it. So I don't think the Mavericks' future is that bad just because worst case scenario, whatever you decide to do in this next year or two doesn't work and you have to trade Luka, you're going to get an absolute haul back for him. But I think they should try to sign guys who can just defend on the wings and just let Luka do his thing offensively. But yeah, that's what I think they should do.
What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I don't know a whole lot about their cap situation, but I agree they just need to do some work in the offseason, getting some good two-way players. But that offense is going to work no matter what. Is Kyrie going to stick around there though?
I don't know. That's the big question.
Yeah.
The problem is I just don't see a world where Kyrie wins with the Mavericks and Luka.
Yeah.
I just don't see.
They're both very ball dominant players.
Both very ball dominant.
Yeah.
I don't see it. They don't. I guess Kyrie played off ball a little bit with the Cavs, but
you also have LeBron, so it's you kind of have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. If they have a good future, I think it's without Kyrie Irving for sure.
I agree. I think Kyrie, like you said, he basically really since Cleveland, we haven't really seen much. It's kind of been a disaster. Obviously he was with the Brooklyn Nets before this, and he played with James Harden and KD, two of the best players of this era. And he was they didn't really have much to show for. And you go from a team that just last year was in the Western Conference Finals to
missing the play-ins altogether.
Yeah, to missing the play-in is just not acceptable. Really, like you said, you have a guy in Luka Doncic who's a generational talent, and you're not really putting a team around him that works. I do agree they need to get 3-and-D guys. I think that's huge. But you look at their team, obviously Kyrie, we'll see if they bring him back. He's going to want a lot of money. You got Tim Hardaway Jr. on $18 million a season. You got Davis Bertans on $17 million per season. Maxi Kleber on $11 million per season. Two of those guys barely even play, and they're making the most money on the team. And so I think the Mavericks have a lot of questions. I think outside of Luka, I don't really see much bright spots on this team. And I think with the way that they have as much free agents as they do, I think it's going to be real interesting. And I think this team, For them to do anything, this team has to look drastically different.
Luka got an extension, right?
Yeah,
he's not on his rookie deal anymore.
He's making $40 million plus for the next 4 years.
Okay, then they've got some time. Yeah, I didn't know if Luka was already like on his rookie deal because this is what his fourth year, fourth or fifth.
Because he was what 20.
He was in the same class as Ayton.
2019.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this was year 4,
yeah.
I believe. So yeah, I think this is the time where, because people are like, oh, they should trade superstars. I'm like, okay, if you're an NBA player, you've got to give your front office at least until the end of your rookie deal to kind of like get something around you. But then if they fail to do that, then you kind of have some leverage. But the fact that he's got a massive contract now, I mean, again, if the Mavericks wanted to trade him and just kind of nuke their whole team, they're going to get a premium for him.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that their future is really dire, but like at the end of the day, they still have Luka, and that's a really big.
That's more
piece.
than most teams.
Yeah, for sure.
You can get so much with that. Yeah. So.
I mean, I feel like Luka, like we could have like an AD situation, like when he was in New Orleans, where he's got 2-3 years left on his contract, but he's just like I'm out. I want to go to this team. You haven't put anything around me really to win. And like
make it happen.
Yeah, like I feel like Luka could get to that point here if they don't do anything here in the next year or two, and just be like, hey, I got 2 years left on my contract. I'm 20. What is he like? I'm 26.
He's like 25 right now.
Yeah, I'm 27, 28. I'm in my prime, and I have nothing really to show for it. So like, you got to trade me. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens if they don't really put much.
Oh, he's 24.
Yeah.
Ooh. That's what I'm talking about. If they've got a year or two, if they trade him, he's going to be 26, 27.
Yeah, he'll get definitely the biggest trade package we've seen ever. Another team that I think has an even more questionable future is the LA Clippers. They just who'd they lose to? The Sun? No.
Yeah, they lost to the Suns.
Lost to the Suns. Yeah, lost to the Suns in 5 games in the first round. Paul George didn't play. Kawhi Leonard played, 2 games? Mm-hmm. And that's been the story of the Clippers since 2020, basically, is Paul George and Kawhi can't stay healthy and can't play together. And now they're talking about maybe getting rid of Ty Lue. And you have both Kawhi and PG becoming free agents potentially here next offseason. And you got no picks because they traded them off to OKC for Paul George. So, like, what do you think the Clippers need to do? Do they need to trade both Kawhi and PG, trade PG, or do they think they should just ride it out and hope that both of them can stay healthy?
This is hard because I don't think there's a great solution at any turn. Because I don't think you're going to be able to get a ton for either one of them because they only have 1 year left on their deals. So I think you just ride it out again next season and hope and pray to the basketball gods that they can both stay healthy, because when they're both healthy and at 100% with the roster they have, I think they could legitimately win the West. Yeah. But that's been, like you said, that's been the story. They can't ever stay healthy. They can't ever stay on the court. So because they only have 1 year left on their deal, I would just kind of ride it out. And roll the dice one more time, but I don't think that's a great option, because if what will likely happens again and one of them misses substantial time, then you're screwed for not just this year, but the next 5 years plus. So, I mean, I don't think there's a great solution at any turn with the Clippers right now.
If you roll the dice again, the chance that both of their stars play all season is so low that
they don't even need to play all season. They just need to be healthy in the playoffs.
Yeah, that's true, and that's probably it's just not. I don't think that's going to happen ever.
Yeah, I mean, it hasn't happened the last 4 years.
I think they need to accept that this super team will never come to fruition in the playoffs. Like they're just never gonna be there for it. I think you trade them away, even though when you're left on the deal. I think you have to cut your losses at some point and move on.
Yeah, I agree. I think you'd rather trade them for something than lose them for nothing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so, like you said, what history's shown us here the last 3-4 years is they can't stay healthy, and they had that one run in, 2021, where Paul George led them to the Western Conference Finals. But again,
Kawhi
missed the entire playoffs.
Yeah.
And then this year it was PG missing the entire playoffs. And I mean, really, since they've been together, I mean, they've been disappointing. In 2020 in the bubble, they didn't even make it to the conference finals.
2020 was their chance.
Yeah, that's the last time both of them have been healthy, and they didn't even make it to the conference finals. 2021, they do make it to the Western Conference Finals, but that's not with Kawhi. And then 2022, they were disappointing. This year, they were disappointing. And now, I think you just got to see the writing on the wall. Like, this experiment didn't work. And you just, like you said, you just got to cut your losses and get whatever you can get. I mean, Kawhi is still, when healthy, is a top player. So he's gonna get, you're gonna get stuff for him. You're probably not gonna get what you got for him when he was traded to Toronto, but you can still get something for him. And then I think PG, I don't think his market is very high, but I mean, you'd rather get a couple of players and a first round pick than them do the same thing they've done this year, and then both of them just going to free agency, and you just cutting your losses and not getting anything for it. So I think they're really in a bad position either way. I mean, you got to just kind of it's really hard to determine what they should and shouldn't do.
All you need is one ring, though.
Yeah.
Like with the Rams went all in to win that title a couple years ago. And if they were to get one ring, I think Clippers fans would say this entire year was a success, but the chances of actually getting that are so low.
Yeah.
To the point where, like, is it worth taking that risk? So I think that's something that the Clippers front office, uncomfortable questions are going to need to be asked over the next couple months.
Absolutely. I think one thing that I find funny is going into that 2020 season, like, we thought that just the NBA was just all like super teams and all like duos, and it really like
not a single
the only
team
that did anything was the Lakers, and they won the championship in the bubble. And I mean,
they're back
other than this year, they hadn't really done too much. And then obviously the Nets with their big three, they were disappointing, and now you got the Clippers who have also been disappointing. So for a team when Kawhi and PG came, we were like, oh, these guys are going to be in the finals, if not in the Western Conference Finals. It's
going to be the Battle of LA.
Yeah, for the next 4 years. And we said the Nets should win 2 or 3 straight championships with the roster they have. And the only team to show out with anything was the Lakers. So I just find that really funny that, like, none of those teams really worked out to what people thought they were going to.
Yeah, Kawhi was making commercials about how LA was his city when he was first traded to the Clippers, and has not lived up well at all.
Clippers are still the baby of
little brother.
Yeah. Speaking about another disappointing Western Conference team, the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies star point guard Ja Morant had another incident with him flashing a gun on Instagram Live. This is the second incident in the last 3 or 4 months. And the first one he got suspended was 8 games.
He was suspended indefinitely, but he did this program, they let him come back after 8 games.
Yeah. And so now looking at it, obviously this is his second time he's done this, and they talked to Adam Silver during the draft lottery, and he said he's expecting the worst for what the disciplinary action is going to be. So with that being said, what do you guys think? How long do you think Josh should be suspended for this?
It's kind of in a tough spot because I was watching First Take, and JJ Redick was like, "There's nothing outlined in the players' union in the CBA. Like, if you pass an illegal drug test, it's X amount of games for X offense, and a lot of other things. It's very clearly outlined. This is kind of like a first where, like, we don't know. There's nothing outlined to where, like a firearm or anything is displayed and you're like flaunting it around. It's not like you just have it. Like you're having it and you're letting everyone know that you have it. And combined with all the incidents that have resurfaced over the past couple years, I mean, I don't like this is the first of its kind. There's nothing there's no precedent for this. And like JJ Redick said, he didn't break any laws technically, but that doesn't make it okay at all. Yeah. Like, you are a role model for young children. You are one of the faces of the league. You're representing an entire city in Memphis. So there are people saying he should be suspended the full season. There are other people saying he should get less than 10 games. So, I mean, I don't know. As long as they come out and give a detailed and legitimate explanation and then set a precedent for this for the future, I'm okay with whatever they do, to be honest.
I haven't thought a whole lot about, how many games, how many days, or whatever. But I think the damage, the delinquency of Ja Morant has caused to that locker room is pretty huge, and the Grizzlies are gonna pay for that. I don't know. Whatever the league comes up with, I'm sure I'll be okay with.
Yeah,
like you said, nothing illegal. I guess he's not
Tennessee's an open carry state, so assuming he has a permit or whatever, he's technically not breaking any laws. But still, that Donald Sterling wasn't breaking any laws when he said all that stuff in 2013 about fans in his arena.
It's a matter of how bad of a look it is for the league.
Yeah.
So they could come out with a really hefty suspension, I imagine.
Yeah. I think one thing that's underrated in this whole predicament is what you said, is the effect that it has on the locker room. I mean, we saw they were the second seed in the West this year, and they lost to a play-in team, and they had their issues with Dylan Brooks. I mean, they came out and said there's no way that
there's no circumstance are we bringing them back.
Yeah, so that locker room is
a mess.
It's a mess right now, and Ja Morant is supposed to be their leader, and he's out here doing stuff that most people would just call childish and immature for what. Like you said, face of the league and all that stuff. So I think that's really a big thing. Is how do the players themselves and how do his teammates think of that? Because he's putting the team in jeopardy. Because if he misses a lot of games, obviously he's their best player. But then again, the Grizzlies are weirdly better without him. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's not just the team though. He's jeopardizing throwing his whole career away.
Yeah.
If you're his friends or his family, how do you continue to enable this? He's gonna if he stays on the right track, he's good enough to where he's gonna have enough money to take care of all of you for the rest of your life.
And you're yeah.
So it's if you're I think we gotta not just Ja deserves the most blame because he's a 23-year-old man. He knows the difference between right and wrong. This is very clearly wrong, but if you're his close friends or his family members, you got to be in his ear. What are you doing? It happened before. One incident, okay, it's whatever. It was taken care of, but it's very clear that he hasn't learned. And I think he came out with a statement that was my words don't mean much right now, but my actions will prove otherwise. And I think Shan Sharp said that on Undisputed. Or whatever it was, where he was I don't base apology off of words. I base it off of actions. And he's going to need to show that more than ever. But like you said, that locker room is a mess. And this time last year, we thought the Grizzlies were going to be a perennial contender in the West. And
Joe literally said he was fine in the West a couple months ago.
And it's crazy how things can change in 12 months. Because now we don't know if he's even going to play next year and where the Grizzlies are going to be. They might just nuke it again because they don't want Ja as a distraction in the locker room. But, we'll see.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to monitor. But, yeah, I think it's at least going to be a double-digit suspension.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll see the actual length of it, but it's definitely going to be longer just because it's a second offense in a couple
Adam
of months.
Silver, that conversation he had with Malika Andrews, he was visibly shocked when he saw that.
Yeah,
he did not expect. I think he was duped by what Josh said to him in whatever conversation. I think he fully 100% bought it. Like he thought he wasn't going to have to worry about this again, and like 3 months later, it's like we're in the same situation that he was back in like February, and he's like, I think he's going to make an example of Ja Morant, whether it be half a season, a full season, whatever it is, because he's not one to mess around with things like this. Like he was,
he's really big on like how people perceive the NBA.
Yeah, and it's not even about legal issues at this point. Like the NBA is not the law. They can do whatever they want. They're their own separate entity. And if it gives you a bad look, they have every right to do whatever it is that they feel is necessary. So, yeah, like I said, as long as they come up with a detailed explanation and their reasoning, I don't care what they do, to be honest.
Yeah. I agree. All right, let's move into the fun stuff. The NBA playoffs. We're getting close to the end. We got the conference finals here. We'll start off with the Lakers and the Nuggets. They play Game 2 tonight. Just Game 1 went to the Nuggets, and the Lakers almost came back in that one. That was a heck of a game. I mean, what are you guys expecting from this series?
I mean, I watched Game 1 with my dad in its entirety, and I was just in awe about like what I was watching. From not just Jokic, but that entire Nuggets offense. There was a stretch throughout the like latter 4 minutes of the second quarter and throughout like the entire third where they just did not miss an open shot.
Yes. Yeah.
And the thing is, the Lakers had like their best game offensively that I've seen from them in this postseason. And they still were down by like 21, I think it was at one point. And like you said, they did almost come back.
They cut it to 3 at one point.
Yeah. And I think they put Rui Hachimura on Jokic that fourth quarter. And Jokic was nowhere near as effective as he was the first 3, but the damage was already done. I mean, Game 2 tips off in like a half hour from now as we're recording this. But I cannot wait to see a full 7-game series of this.
We'll see about this, but like you said, the Lakers had a really good game offensively, and what I think is that everything went right for them that game, and they still were outmatched. So I think the Nuggets win this in 6. To be honest, I just don't see anything slowing them down. Like the Lakers had really good performances. I feel like from almost
everyone that they needed to have a good performance,
and it wasn't enough.
AD dropped 40.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
what more can you ask
And that
for?
got overshadowed by Jokic's 34, 21, 14.
Yeah, it was just I just think they're overwhelmingly outmatched.
Yeah, they're going to have to... I mean, I think it's pretty evident after that first game that Jokic is going to get his, no matter who's on it. They just have to hope and pray that, like, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Jamal Murray, Aaron Gordon don't light them up from the outside, and Jamal Murray, when it gets to crunch time, doesn't come through like he always has when he's been healthy. And I think that's easier said than done. So before Game 1, I think the Lakers had a real shot to take this series, but after seeing Game 1, I think we'll have a better idea after Game 2, but after seeing Game 1, I think the Nuggets, barring major injury, kind of have this in the bag.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be a great series just from Game 1 alone. I mean, like you said, the Nuggets, for a stretch there, just were missing. I mean, Jokic, like I mentioned a couple seconds ago, 34, 21, 14, that just seems like the norm for him now. I mean, 30-20 game with also adding 14 assists is just unreal.
Shot like 60% from the field, too. Like,
Yeah.
It was insane.
And then we were talking about this earlier, like he had that buzzer beater 3 that he just kind of chucked up, and AD couldn't do anything but smile and laugh.
Yeah, it was a step back 35-footer that he shot put with AD in his hand, in his like face, and it didn't even hit the rim. And he just looked at AD and just shrugged his shoulders, and AD just laughed and just shook his head. He's like, what am I even supposed to do about this?
Yeah. And I mean, they had huge performances, like you said, Jamal Murray putting in 31, Michael Porter 15, Aaron Gordon with 12. He was very good defensively as well. But I think if you're the Lakers, the only way that you could win this series is you can't let guys like Bruce Brown and Kentavious Caldwell-Pope beat you. Like 21 points for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, 16 for Bruce Brown. Like, that's a big difference. I mean, if you can just, because like you said, Jokic and Murray are more than likely going to get theirs. Michael Porter is a black hole on offense, but it's good most of the time.
Yeah. Doesn't matter when he's hitting shots.
Yeah, and Aaron Gordon is very versatile. He's carved out a great role. And then, I mean, for the Lakers, like you mentioned, 40-point double-double for AD was not enough.
Yeah.
And LeBron had 26, 9, and 12. Again, great stats, but he has been struggling from the three-point percentage. We saw he shot that one, which could have tied the game, and it went in and out. So, and then, I mean, Austin Reeves kept doing what he's been doing here these last couple of games, chipping in 23 points. Rui had a great game with 17. But a big reason why they ended up winning that Warriors series was because they had random like big performances by like Lonnie Walker, D'Lo, Dennis Schroeder, and like I just think this Nuggets team is just deeper, and I just feel like they play well together, and it's just when they're hitting their shots, like there's no doubt. But I am encouraged that the Lakers didn't just lay down and roll over and just accept the defeat. They fought and were almost made a comeback. And so I don't think this is going to be just like a cakewalk for the Nuggets. I think they're going to have to earn their wins. But I agree with you, Peyton. I think the Nuggets can win this one in 6. But I think all of the games are going to be this close. I think this is going to be a great series, and I'm really excited to continue watching.
You can expect that competitiveness from that Lakers roster.
Yeah, for sure.
So it'll be a great series.
They've been doubted this whole season, really, until Dylan Brooks said he pokes bears, and then that kind of lit a fire under that whole team that we know loves LeBron and fights for him like he's their son or father or family member for whatever reason. So they're going to fight, claw, scratch. They're going to do everything in their power to make this a close series. And by sheer willpower alone, they might somehow come out with a series win. But I just think the Nuggets are a better and deeper team.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. I love the performances by the two underdogs in the playoffs.
Yeah,
this year.
2 play-in teams making to the conference finals. This is crazy.
Yeah.
One more thing to note is about the Lakers is I'm pretty sure they are starting Rui this game, so we'll see if that adds anything, because like you said, it's on Jokic.
We'll see if it actually has an impact
on
Jokic this game or not.
And then we'll see if D'Lo can get it back rolling, because he didn't shoot very well this game 1, and so it obviously wasn't enough.
I also think something that's got to be talked about in this series is the home court advantage for Denver.
Yeah, it's a big thing.
The altitude that you have, and it's not just with the Nuggets, like the Broncos, the Avalanche, the Rockies. When they're good, that altitude is a big factor. And I don't think the Nuggets have lost a home game at all.
No, I think they're 7-0.
Yeah. So I think home court advantage is a real factor when you combine the altitude and the fact that this is arguably the best Nuggets team ever. Yeah. Like I don't see Denver losing at home. Like that's the problem. The Lakers are going to have to take a game in Denver, and I don't see a way that they're going to be able to do that.
No. Yeah. Let's head over to the East side. Celtics and Heat. Also, I mean, we have a bubble rematch for both series. This was the final 4 teams in the bubble. And Jimmy Butler's got some unfinished business. The Heat and the Celtics have been in the Eastern Conference Finals the last
3 of the last 4 years.
Yeah. And last year, I mean, Jimmy missed that 3 and almost went to the finals. And Jimmy Butler left off right where he's been this entire series. 35, 5, and 7, just leading that team. And like we mentioned,
gained 6 steals.
Yeah, which is unreal. And then, like we said before we started filming, big contributions by Kyle Lowry, Caleb Martin, Max Strus, Gabe Vincent, and Bam Adebayo. All 5 of them had over 15 points. And that's been really the story of this Heat team is Jimmy Butler leading them, and then just their role players just stepping up when they need to. Obviously, losing Tyler Hero was a big blow, but Max Strus has been great on the three. Gabe Vincent has been really good. Both guys undrafted, both starting this entire playoffs. Kyle Lowry has had games here or there, and Bam is just still one of the top defenders for that center position. But it's all led by Jimmy Butler.
Yeah. I don't even know how this Heat team is where they're at. I feel like this time a month or two ago we were talking about should Miami blow it up after this season, because in the regular season they were underwhelming. Jimmy Butler just kind of was like lackadaisical in terms of the regular season. Their role players missed significant time. Like we were talking about this earlier, they were 3 minutes away from losing to the Bulls at home in the play-in. They wouldn't have even touched Milwaukee. And Jimmy Butler is having one of the most influential playoff runs I've seen since I've started watching the NBA, and I've watched the NBA for like 15 years now. Mm-hmm. It reminds me a lot of Dirk's playoff run in 2011, where he faced team after team that people thought the Mavericks don't have a chance, or they're not going to win in a 7-game series, and then they just keep finding ways to claw and scratch out wins. And like you said, Gabe Vincent, Max Strus, Bam. Strus, Vincent, Bam, Caleb Martin, Kyle Lowry, like, it's just I don't even know where this is coming from. And I've been doubting this Heat team this whole playoffs. Like, you guys know this firsthand. I keep saying that, like, they played the Bucks, I said Bucks in 5, and it was the exact opposite. And then I had them beating the Knicks, but they like dominated that series for every game apart from Game 6 in Miami. And then I said Celtics in 5 at the start of this series, and lo and behold, the Heat go out and win Game 1. It seems like every single time I looked up in Game 1, Jimmy Butler was stealing another pass. It's crazy. And I'm done doubting this Heat team.
They've proven me wrong so many times.
Yeah.
I can't bet against them anymore. I feel like
it reminds me a lot of like in the Patriots' last few years with Brady. It's like you look at that team, it's like there's nothing special about that team. There's nothing special about that team, but they have one guy, and they just keep finding out ways to claw out wins. And give credit to Eric Spoelstra, too. Probably the most underrated head coach in the NBA and maybe all of sports.
I would say he's the best coach right now.
Yeah, he hasn't won a single Coach of the Year.
I find that crazy.
That's insane. Yeah, he hasn't won Coach of the Year ever, and he's leading this Heat team to conference finals, to finals, and with a guy that's been doubted his whole life in Jimmy Butler. Ever since the age of 13, when he was kicked out of his house, he's had to fight and claw his way, and then even in the NBA, in every single place he's been until Miami, he's been discarded. So he's playing with a chip on his shoulder. That entire team is playing with a chip on their shoulder. They feel disrespected, and I'm done disrespecting them.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, talk about disrespecting coming into the series. ESPN gave them a 3% chance to win.
That's absurd.
And after Game 1, still only gave them a 13% chance to win. And like you said, their defense has been what's been winning them games. And then obviously, like, they've had really good offensive games too. But I mean, numbers-wise, you look at the Celtics, they didn't have a bad offensive game just from pure like numbers. Like Jason Tatum had 30, Jaylen Brown had 22 and 9. You got 19 from Brogdon off the bench. But the Heat just did those little things, and like you said, Jimmy had 5-6 steals?
6 steals,
which is huge.
That game was won in the third quarter.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys watched that, but they shot like 65%.
Yeah. The Heat scored 46 points in the third quarter.
Yeah, and that was ridiculous. And I think the Celtics keep melting down in the fourth, I feel like, too.
They're not good at
They don't give the ball to
Jason
Tatum. Did not.
Jason Tatum had 2 travels in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, and he didn't.
And they were both legitimate, too.
Yeah. And he didn't shoot. Like, he didn't touch the ball in the fourth.
And these are things they got to fix if they want to win the series.
Yeah.
I mean,
because the Heat are notoriously, like, one of the best teams in the league in terms of closing out games, and the
Yeah,
Celtics have just
absolutely.
been melting down this entire postseason.
The Miami Heat are going to out effort you every time, so you gotta play really clean.
It's
basketball.
a culture thing.
Yeah,
It's always been a culture thing
absolutely.
with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's so weird that, like, you look at this team, like you said, 46 points in the third quarter, and Joe Mazzulla didn't call a single timeout. And then you have Jason Tatum not touching the ball and not doing anything in the fourth quarter.
Yep.
Like, Jason Tatum is your best player. He just came off a game where he scored 51
Career
points.
best season,
and a closing game 7 and to get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And he doesn't get the ball in the fourth quarter. I just don't understand that. And that begs a question, like, I know my roommate Ryan has his own thoughts about this, but what do you guys think? Joe Mazzulla is a good coach, or do you think he's just kind of has the keys to like the?
I think he's been given the keys to a Ferrari and been told not to crash it.
Mm-hmm.
I think first series
kind of crashing it.
Yeah, first series against Atlanta, it's like. I mean, all you have to do is show up, and you should be able to win that series.
I mean, that series shouldn't have even gone to 6 games. It should have been 5 at most.
Trae Young's too good to be swept, but like
I kept waiting for them to put Atlanta away.
Yeah,
that
they
was
just
crazy.
never did until like the last quarter of Game 6. And then against Philadelphia, they kind of just melted down in crunch time.
Yeah, they're the beginning of the series.
So I think this series is going to be kind of really similar to that Philadelphia series, where when they win, they're going to blow Miami out, but they got to win 4 games. And all the Heat have to do is win 4 games. And it doesn't matter whether you win by 1 or whether you win by 30. A win counts as a win in a 7-game series. So we'll see. But Mazzulla, I think this year's kind of an unfair test because he was kind of just thrust in there with this roster. So we'll see, like, next year and the year after what he can do with this team. So I haven't thought too much about whether I think Joe Mazzulla is a good coach or not. But I can kind of see where Ryan's coming from, because when it comes to big boy time, they just haven't shown up.
I just don't understand why he just is against taking timeouts.
Yeah.
And that I think it was either Game 6 or Game 7 of the Philly series. They were down with 45 seconds left. He had 2 timeouts and didn't take any of them to set up a play or anything. And then this fourth quarter, you get dropped 46 points in the third quarter, and you don't.
You've got to call
You
a
got to call a
timeout
timeout
just to stop the flow.
Yeah, to stop momentum or
point.
something. You can't just let him keep riding it out. And so, I just think, game management wise, he's got to step it up. And yeah, I mean, also another thing to note is, out of the 4 teams left in the playoffs, the Heat, the Lakers, and the Nuggets are all 7-0 at home, but the Celtics are 4-4. So that's big, because most of these teams, like you mentioned with the Nuggets, they have really good home court advantage, and I mean the Heat do too. And so they're putting people away at home, but the Celtics have not. And the home games are the ones you're supposed to win, and to not win those and already going down 1-0 in your own building against this Miami Heat team.
You're going to have to steal a game in a place that hasn't lost since the playoffs started.
Exactly.
They haven't lost since the play-in game. They lost to Atlanta, and then they've just kind of been rolling in Miami.
Yeah. So I mean, I think that's definitely something to look out for is if they can kind of put teams at home away, and they haven't done that. Obviously, I mean, they lost the first game, and so I mean, odds are they'll probably win the next one. But then, like you said, they're gonna
better win the next one.
Like you said, if the Heat win one, you're down 2-1. You got to play Miami in Miami again, and so. I mean, I think it's going to be like that Sixers series again. There's just going to be just clawing back and forth, and so we'll see. Before we close out, what are you guys' predictions for these series? You said for the Western Conference, you said Nuggets in 6.
Nuggets in 6. I think I go back and forth. I'll just say Heat in 7 though. I'm feeling that way today.
I'll go Nuggets in 6, and then I will go Celtics in 7.
I mean, yeah, I'm going to stick with you all in terms of Nuggets in 6. that Celtics Heat series is going to be a war.
Mm-hmm.
I don't
so
know.
hard.
I don't know.
It's just so hard.
Before the series started, I was like, the Celtics have too much depth, too much talent. Like, they should win this. But after game one, it's like, will they?
Yeah.
It's like, will they win this? I'm gonna say Heat in 6. I'm done. I'm done.
6.
I'm done doubting Miami. I don't think they lose in Miami. I'm gonna go with Miami in 6. I think Jimmy Butler's got a point to prove.
Absolutely.
And that whole Heat team kind of wants revenge for how last season ended. I think they'll close it out in Game 6 at home this year and kind of make up for last year.
All right, Nick, our playoff predictions. We got 2 out of the
We did
4.
get 2 out of the 4 teams, right?
Not terrible.
Not bad. Not as bad as the March Madness bracket.
Hey, listen. Listen to me. Listen.
That was bad.
I don't want to.
That was the last time you sat here, Nick.
What, the
last-
Arizona National Championship? Christian, they lose to Princeton in the first game.
Well, I mean, we had Bucks and Suns,
We had Bucks
right?
and Suns in the finals, yeah.
And the Bucks lost in the first
Bucks
round,
lost in
and
the
the
first
Suns lost in the second round. So
Yeah.
I mean, those aren't ridiculous picks, to be fair.
No.
Did anyone seriously
nobody
have
saw-
Miami beating Milwaukee in
In
the first
5?
round? Yeah, in
No,
5.
nobody
Come
saw,
on.
Nobody saw that coming. But yeah, I mean, I think these playoffs have been fun.
They've
First
been so
first round, I thought was like just must see TV. Second round, a couple of the series were. If I'm being completely honest, I didn't watch the Suns and Nuggets series.
I watched it when I had free time.
I watched more the Celtics than the Heat and then the Lakers. But
I watched like almost none of that Knicks Heat series.
yeah,
I didn't watch that. I didn't watch Celtics Sixers because they just took turns melting down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Each game it felt like. So I just kind of got tired of that.
That Lakers Warriors series was
did
must
watch
see
all of
TV.
yeah, that was fun.
I watched most of that Suns Nuggets series just because I like both those teams are
Really good.
crazy.
Yeah.
Like I remember I was at B-Dubs last Thursday and I just watched the Suns completely collapse again. I looked up and it was like 70-48 and I was like, does that say 70?
Why does that keep happening?
Yeah, I don't know. I looked up, it was like 70 to something. I was like, is that a 7 or a 6? Does that say? But yeah, like I didn't watch any of that Knicks Heat series just because like both those teams
We all knew
played boring basketball. And we kind of all knew the Heat were going to take it at some point.
Yeah.
But I watched most of that Sixers Celtics series too, and like you said, they just kind of took turns melting down.
Yeah.
So I like the second round. I enjoyed the second round a lot. I've enjoyed these whole playoffs.
Yeah,
a lot.
these playoffs have been really good. I feel like if the Nuggets win, I feel like it'll kind of be like 2021 vibes when the Bucks won.
Yeah.
Like a small market team that played very well, has a good roster, and they have a very likable star that has performed at the highest level and played some of his best basketball.
Someone said that if the Nuggets played the Heat, it would get like 5 viewers per game. And I was like, I want to see that
I would be
so
one of them.
badly. I would be one of those 5 viewers per
Yeah,
game.
same.
I want to see that series so badly.
I mean, it's not Lakers Celtics, but I mean,
I want to see
it's
Lakers
the two.
Celtics too.
It's I can't go wrong. I just wanted the Warriors to
I like
be
all
out.
the-
As
all
long as
the
the
possible
Warriors are
matchups,
out,
yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
fine. So
Lakers
I'm
Heat.
good.
Lakers
I like
Heat's
the
probably one that I
storylines.
wouldn't like the
Bubble
most.
rematch, though? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it'll get the conclusion that season
The
deserved.
bubble counted, Nick.
The bubble. Hey, listen.
the bubble count.
Listen.
He always was like, "No, the bubble doesn't count."
No, I didn't say the bubble doesn't count. I said the bubble means less than every other ring.
Oh, because is he a Jordan guy?
Yeah.
Oh, that's why.
I said the bubble mean. Well, I also said that
he's trying to put
I said that
asterisks on
LeBron's
stuff.
2016 ring counts for 2, so
I
it
know,
evens
I'm
out.
just messing with you.
Listen, the bubble will always mean less than every other ring, but it's nice that we have the conclusion that season deserved this year. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We got 2 more series, and then we got off season. Draft's already heating up. We got the draft combine, draft lottery. Yeah, it's a good time. Good time. All right, well, that'll wrap it up for us today. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.